This episode of the Flush Podcast is brought to you by North Dakota Tourism, Federal Premium Ammunition, Onyx Hunt, Chief Upland, Huron, South Dakota, and by Grain Belt Premium Beer. Today we're taking a deep dive into North Dakota's 2021 pheasant hunting forecast. Mike Jensen works for the state of North Dakota, and he is ready to reveal their updated roadside counts. We'll talk about hotspots to target this season, as well as locations that you might want to avoid due to the drought. Mike will also explain in detail North Dakota's new digital trespass laws, and I'll prod him to give up a few of his state's sleeper destinations.
The Flush. So fast, it hardly seems real. So vivid, the moment freezes in time before erupting in a blur of spurs and feathers. It's why we changed the way Upland loads are built with Prairie Storm. Exclusive flight control flex wad technology and a mix of copper-plated lead and flight stopper pellets combine to create dense, deadly shot strings through any choke. Longer shots, more power, fewer missed birds. Only from Federal.
If you're looking for a great bird hunting destination this season, then I strongly recommend that you consider one of my favorite places to hunt. That's North Dakota. North Dakota is a bird hunter's paradise. You can hunt both waterfowl and upland birds all in the same day. Ducks in the morning, pheasants, sharptailed grouse, and Hungarian partridge in the afternoon, or vice versa. North Dakota has a population estimate of 2.9 million breeding ducks, which is 19% above the long-term average. And their prairie pothole region is smack dab in the middle of the Central Flyway. Last season, pheasants, sharp-tailed grouse, and Hungarian partridge numbers rose in North Dakota, and we're about to talk to Mike Jensen to find out what those numbers are going to look like this year. I'm optimistic that this could still be one of the best bird hunting seasons we've seen in decades. North Dakota has approximately 800,000 acres of private land open to public walk-in hunting. For the latest plots guide, visit the North Dakota Game and Fish Department. Bag your limit this fall in North Dakota. Visit legendarynd.com to start planning your hunting adventure today.
The wild is calling. Answer your thirst for adventure with Grain Belt Premium Beer. Bring the Grain Belt to the outdoors with their limited edition premium hunting season pack. It's available anywhere you can find premium 12-pack cans of Grain Belt.
Welcome to another episode of the Flush Podcast. I'm Travis Frank. I'm your host. Brandon Morton, as always, is sitting next to me. He produces this program. Thank you, Brandon, for sharing your many talents with us, as always. Last week, you left me singing the show open in. I do not appreciate that, so I will never be doing that again. I'm kidding. People apparently like that, so we roll with it. Last week, Scott Franzen joined the show to invite our listeners, you, on a late season pheasant hunt with him. The spots were limited and they filled up almost instantly. So we appreciate your support of what he's calling the Hank Hunt. And who knows, if it goes well this season, maybe we'll do it again next year. So a big thank you to all of you for your continued support. Last week, I also mentioned that Pheasants Forever, along with several other national organizations, launched what they're calling the North American Grasslands Conservation Act. This is a massive group effort on their part to stand up for America's disappearing grasslands. Much like the Disappearing Wetlands Act, this mission will be crucial to our landscape for generations to come. To learn more about the National Grasslands Act, you can head to the Pheasants Forever's website or follow hashtag #ActForGrasslands on social media. All right, let's get to it. My guest today is Mike Jensen. Mike works for the state of North Dakota. Mike, I know you're a busy man, so I appreciate you taking some time to share your bird hunting knowledge with us, specifically those numbers that you're holding in your hand.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Travis. Always good to talk to you.
Well, we talk a few times each year, and I'm always picking your brain about where is a place that people don't know about? What are some of the sleeper destinations? So maybe at the end of the show, we'll get into a couple of your sleeper spots or just cool places in the state. But before we do, let's break down some of the information that you now have in your hand. And that is, the roadside counts, the bird counts from across the state. And then before we do that, I guess I want to let people know a little bit more about your role at the state. How long have you been working for the state of North Dakota, and where do you live?
Sure. Yeah. I'm based in Bismarck. I work for the state, and I'm the outdoor promotions manager for tourism. So I'm out promoting hunting, fishing, hiking, biking, camping, all the fun stuff, everything that every outdoorsman loves to do. But
Right.
I've been with the state for 11 years now.
Gotcha. And what does a normal day look like in outdoor tourism for you?
Well, we're as a tourism staff, we're spread kind of thin. So on the good parts of my day, I get to do outdoor tourism. So that's an hour or two a day, and then we're doing you know other things all day long. But a typical day, we're posting to social media, we're doing film shoots, contacting media, we're just trying to create buzz around hunting and fishing in North Dakota. One thing that we always have a problem with, a lot of people don't know what's up here. A lot of people don't know what we have in North Dakota. So we're just trying to create that sort of that sort of recognition that the state's a great destination for hunting and fishing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you've never experienced it, then you wouldn't know. And I talk about it all the time because that has been my favorite hunting getaway destination basically my whole life. You also work with fish and wildlife biologists, and specifically for this program, we're going to break down the information you received from them about the bird hunting forecast. Let's talk about waterfowl as well as upland. So you just got that information in how long ago?
Well, the Upland Game Brood Survey was released on the 9th. So we've had it in our hand. I can say just generally we've had it for about a week or so, and that kind of looking through the numbers and comparing the numbers to past years and seeing where what kind of trends are happening. Like that's really this last week we've kind of been picking apart these numbers and looking at why things are certain ways they are. And this most of these numbers, most of the things I'm going to talk about today are drought driven. And that's going to be the big talker in this right now, is that we're experiencing extraordinary drought in certain areas of the state, and there's some parts of the state that are seeing decreases in population numbers because of this. And so it's not a fun thing for a tourism guy to talk about, somebody who likes to show people how great things are and how everything
right.
is. And when you're dealing with a drought and you're dealing with, reduced habitat, extraordinary dryness, and it's that sort of thing kind of has led to what we're seeing right now, and what we're seeing. And I'm honest, but I put sunshine on it, but we're down 23% statewide in our pheasant count that they did just this summer for our brood survey, the roadside counts, where they counted numbers of broods and number of birds per. And they do these counts every year. It's a number they've kept for 70 years, that they do the same stretch of roads and count the birds seen per 100 miles. So we have good comparisons for a long stretch of time with this number.
So you feel that they're pretty accurate?
I do, yes. I feel the time of year that they do them and the roads they're on, I feel like they, of course, that they're going to miss some birds here or there. And I do feel like there has been a trend in some areas where, you have more urban people moving to rural areas now, where that wasn't the case in the past, where you just had farmhouses and stuff. And so where we have birds that are kind of hunkering down in people's rural yards. And I have it in my house. And I say it because that's where I am. I live on a rural lot south of Bismarck, in the center of the state. And I have birds in my yard, and that's, we have birds back by our tree rows. And so everywhere where we're kind of creating these smaller bits of habitat for birds, we're kind of holding them in those areas. So where these roadside counts could have shifted is where, some of this, this area was just where I am, at right now is just wide open prairie, and now it's, now there's houses and tree rows, and there's areas of my yard that I don't mow. I've got a couple of acres, and I kind of leave the grass long and in about a
You like
quarter
to
of
see
it.
the birds just as much as we do, don't you?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Well, let's break down regions, because I think it
Mhm.
matters to talk about, instead of just saying, down 23% statewide. That doesn't mean the whole state is affected the same. And I do appreciate your honesty in sharing that information, because the reality is you're not the only place in bird country dealing with this. I mean, here in Minnesota, um, certainly South Dakota, Montana, Iowa, Kansas. I mean, we are dealing with this all over the place. So you're going to be echoing a lot of the same sentiments around the country. Next week, we're going to break down the pheasant forecast for the whole country. I've got Pheasants Forever biologists coming up to talk about other areas, but I wanted to really focus on North Dakota because we spend so much time there, and so many bird hunters head to your state every year. Besides just pheasants, though, Mike, you've
Mhm.
got Hungarian partridge and sharptailed grouse, and they have an ability to survive in conditions that are what we've been seeing this year. Are you seeing a decline in those numbers as well as a whole, or are they stable or up?
Well, they're stable and up, and that's my one bright spot, I guess, that
Mm-hmm.
I have been, not that we're seeing huge increases. Sharptails are up 2%, and
Okay.
Hungarian partridge are up 9% this year. But we're talking statewide. But that's on top of last year we had a 54% increase in sharptail,
Mm-hmm.
45% increase in Hungarian partridge. Year before we saw a 113% increase in sharptail,
Yeah.
58. So we're talking gains on top of gains on top of gains. With like
Yep.
the 2017 year is the year I'm always going to, that's kind of my black 2017, where,
Mm-hmm.
pheasants were down 59%, Sharpies were down 29, like we saw some
Mm-hmm.
decreases in 17 and 18. And, Hungarian partridge were down 62. So that year the population took a hit. Ever since then, though, we've been adding on, Sharptail have been up every year since then. Hungarian
Mm-hmm.
partridge have been up every year since then. So we're seeing, increases of, that 2019 season where we saw 113% increase in sharptail. I mean, that was a big rebound. And then to add 54 the next year, 2% this year, not a big number, but the fact that we're holding and even
Mm-hmm.
gaining a little bit, I mean, that's really good for that population.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've been hearing too from hunters that have been out working dogs in the field before season, and now that your season just opened on Saturday, positive reports again
Mhm.
for grouse and Hungarian partridge. I mean, I know some landowners that have texted me saying that they can't believe how many partridge they're seeing out in the fields when they're working the field. So um, the decline in pheasants that you're talking about is from last year, correct?
Right. Right.
23% down from last year, but being up how high they were last year, you put it into perspective. Where do you feel like you're at with the long-term average this season?
Well, long term, I mean, the Southwest has traditionally been our very solid pheasant range.
Mm-hmm.
We always see good birds in the Southwest, and long term, we're talking, the beginning of the last decade, the 2011, where we saw fantastic numbers down there, and now we've kind of fallen into a new normal where we're seeing, about half the birds that we used to see down in that part of the state. But those are pretty solid. We're seeing they're usually pretty good. But where we're seeing a big uptick, I think, is in the Northwest, and
Okay.
where that across the long term average, Northwest hasn't been um, our traditional. That's people haven't been coming here to go to the northwestern part of the state. I mean, they honestly they look at our real pheasant hotspots, Mott and Regent, and some of those areas
Mm-hmm.
that always have birds. But the Northwest, and this year, just like last year, the Northwest has the highest number of birds. that they counted in their brood surveys. So we're seeing again that northwestern part of the state is has the highest numbers. Of course, they had the highest decline, but that was on top of a big increase from last year. So a lot of these areas, like the Southwest, you're going to see better numbers than we saw. I mean, a lot of people are doom and gloom right now, like, oh, it's so bad, the drought's so bad, but our numbers right now are higher than 2019, 2018, 2017, even in most of these regions. And so we're seeing, we're seeing good numbers. It's just last year we had a real solid increase last year. And so of course we're seeing a little correction on those numbers this year. And so the Northwest is the highest population in the state. The Southwest is solid, similar numbers to what has been down there for the last 5 years.
Okay.
And then the areas that we can consider marginal pheasant range, kind of our secondary range, the Northeast and then the Southeast used to be a very solid part of the state. We used to always see birds down in the Southeast around Ellendale, down in Dickey County. That area, we saw an increase down there this year. Where they're down statewide. It was a very small increase, but we saw an increase down there. And then the Northeast had nowhere to go but up. I mean, we're talking 10 years ago, they rarely found a bird down up in the Northeast. And, this year, their numbers in the Northeast are growing. They've been on an upward trend for a while. For the past decade, they've been seeing more and more birds. And I know, Travis, you've laughed at me in a couple of areas that I've recommended where I said, there's some areas around, in
Devil's Lake, right?
Devil's Lake in that area. Yep. And I got, and this year they had the highest pheasant count on record up in the Northeast.
Come on.
Yeah. And
wow,
we're talking, it's a third of the birds that they count in the Northwest, and it's all
relative. So their percentage increase and a percentage decrease in a different part of the state is not the same number of birds. If we take if you're averaging 100 birds in this section and you go down to 95, and then you're averaging 10 birds in this section and you go up to 12, that's your percentages are based on that. But
yes.
Yeah, this is interesting. You and I have been talking about this for a couple of years, and I don't think I've been laughing at you. I think we've been laughing together. But you were telling me how the water tables have changed in the Devil's Lake region, and receding waters have attributed to more habitat on the ground, which is what's causing more pheasants to be found in the Devil's Lake. Is that still the case? I mean, obviously the drought this year, I can't imagine the water tables on Devil's Lake are still going up, are they?
No, they're not, and that's exactly the case. And I'm glad you put those numbers into perspective, because when we're talking, a lot of times in the Northwest, like in 2011, their birds counted per 100 mile were 4 birds. That was so across 100 miles. And so when there was an increase to 12, and they would publish this number that the bird population increased by 200% up in the
it's not 12 birds.
People would go nuts. And no, that's 12 birds. That's not huge. But looking at that, going from 4 birds or 6 birds per 100 mile to popping up into the 20s and nearing 30 now, it's like that's a trend to me. Like, we're starting to see that, and I believe that trend does have to do with that habitat. I mean, our population is very dependent on habitat, and where you see that increase in grass, the grass that's growing in the areas of the lake that have receded. Devil's Lake is down. It's not a lot, 5 feet or so, but remember, on Devil's Lake, every time the lake loses a foot of elevation, that's 10,000 acres of land that comes out of the water. And so when it comes to, when you're talking 50,000 more acres of land that was underwater and is now kind of this grassy land up there and creating pretty good grassland habitat. I mean, because these were all mud flats that have turned into grasslands. And so that's obviously one of my sleepers. That's one of those areas. Still, marginal pheasant habitat, but a really great place if you're looking at doing, kind of a all bird hunt. If you want to hunt ducks and geese and you're looking at maybe throwing in some pheasant days into a duck hunt, that area has been really great for that.
Well, and then if you want to go catch a few walleyes as well,
Oh,
I mean,
no,
the ultimate cast and blast place. One of the most
absolutely.
popular hunts that I've ever done was on Lake Sakakawea on the Army Corps land around the lake. We fished walleyes and sleeper alert. Tons of smallmouth bass out there. My goodness,
Yes.
we had to we couldn't keep the bass off while we're trying to catch walleyes. And but then you pull right up on shore, and you've got that land there that you can walk. That's open to the public for the most part. Most of that land is so that cast and blast adventure is what has always drawn me to North Dakota. Now, I shouldn't say always cast and blast, being fishing part of it, but the ability to hunt upland birds and waterfowl in the same day. What about the waterfowl conditions? Are you feeling like they've taken a hit as well because of the drought? Or is it just one of them things where if you find the water, man, get ready because you are going to find a mecca of birds?
Sure. And I feel that like the drought has hit that a little harder than the pheasants, just because
Really?
our water index is
Mm-hmm.
down like 90% from where it's
Okay.
normally at. And so we're, just a lot. As you drive through the state, you see a lot of dried up potholes, and you see a lot of areas that are not holding water like they normally are. So it's going to be a different kind of hunt this year. We're used to having local birds. Like we're used to having a lot of birds that are just stay here year round, like not necessarily year round, but all summer leading up to the season. And then, we end up having a population that stays pretty late into our duck season. So I think this year it's going to be more of that flight type of thing where people are going to be watching. It feels to me a lot like spring snow goose, maybe, where everybody's going to watch and see, okay, when's the big flight going to come through, and they're going to be following those migration patterns and figuring out when the birds are coming through, rather than I can just go anytime and duck hunting's going to be fantastic. It's duck hunting's going to be great, but it's going to be better when we have a major flight, a major migration of ducks coming through.
Well, I think it's always the case. If I'm being honest, it's always the case. You want to, as a waterfowl hunter, you always want to hit that migration. But I've told people this ever since I started hunting out there. Next to going up into Canada, I think North Dakota offers the best duck hunting in the lower 48 in America. And I just feel like even if the migration isn't full on, the amount of birds that you guys have there anyway, it's all like if it's down a little bit, it's still better than anything that I get to experience in Minnesota 99% of the time. And I'm just being honest because of what the habitat here holds and how many birds. Are you feeling like Canada is holding more of the birds this year? Did they get more moisture up there?
I don't. I feel like the drought has extended. Where you find moisture is south of us, not north of us.
Okay.
And those areas, there's spots, and I'm even surprised going across the state, the places where some crops are doing very well and some crops are horrible. And there's parts of the state, like in the West, where I thought it was going to be dry. It's a more arid part of the state in North Dakota. As you go to the West, you find, there's just less moisture out that way. But they have pretty decent looking crops out there right now. I was just out that way earlier this week. I was out on Sunday and really surprised to see how, good standing corn, good, there's a lot of crops there. Where in the center of the state and maybe, Northwest, I would say there's a kind of a box between Bismarck, Minot, Devil's Lake, and Jamestown, kind of that area where that's the hardest hit by the drought. And that's where we're seeing people, a lot of, corn that didn't even tassel this year, and farmers that were cutting their corn back in, back in July just to feed to their livestock.
Dang. I was going to say that I was out, I drove through your state first week of September, and I was pleasantly surprised at how green everything was. The rains that came through in August really changed the look of the landscape? To my eye, it looked way better than what I was anticipating. I thought it was going to be extremely brown, extremely arid looking, and I didn't see that.
Yeah,
Am I wrong in seeing what I
you're
saw?
you're right on with what you saw, and it's kind of surprising. There's things. I mean, yeah, you think when July was as dry as it was and everything browned up, like we had a lot of brown in July. It looked like a typical end of September into October when we had golden fields in July that we're normally not used to seeing this year. And then we had there was just a series of rains that came through and just had a green up that really changed the look of the landscape. And I agree with what you said there. It looks like there's more moisture than there is. I mean, it wasn't not really enough to fill up potholes but enough to at least green up the landscape and improve the habitat a little bit.
Hmm. That's the one thing that I think is important is that, the birds that are there now, the thing that I'm most worried about is if we get a nasty winter, the habitat isn't thick enough, isn't going to give them the things they need to survive a really tough winter. Do you echo that?
I do that. I mean, I am worried about, if there's a lot of haying done on CRP or on lands, like even plots lands and things,
Hmm.
if they're doing some emergency haying on some of those, and there's some parts of the state that's happening.
Yep.
That's the habitat that I'm worried about, because that's the stuff that we can normally rely on. And if that's cut down to stubble and there's no cover there, yeah, it's tough. But I'm really encouraged with what I'm seeing, especially out west, certain areas of the southeast. And there's some areas that really, I mean, they got rains at just the right times, and we're seeing some pretty good, some pretty good grass and some pretty good habitat, and especially in a lot of, we've had initiatives now too with, tree planting and the Outdoor Heritage Fund that we have in the state. Uh, that's a fund that comes from oil extraction taxes,
Okay.
and they've been using that to plant a lot of trees and tree rows and trying to improve habitat with that. And so we have a lot of those things that are going for us, where they're putting a lot of, most of that Outdoor Heritage Fund is going into habitat projects.
Love
And
to
so
see that.
and so that's the kind of thing where, we're going to see positive returns on that in the next couple of years.
How do you explain the increases in the Hungarian partridge numbers in your state? I think if I could only hunt one bird for the rest of my life, it probably would be hunts because they just, everything about them. It's like the covey
Mhm.
explosion of quail, but it's a bigger bird. They're delicious to eat. I mean, everything about them. They live in beautiful places. Do you have a theory as to why your partridge numbers have risen so much lately?
I feel that there are some of those, some of the areas that we find partridge more often are not in an area that you have seen dramatic changes in land usage, and where, there's a lot of modern farming practices that have changed land usage, and there's areas of the state that I can say were very much changed by, that. And the primary range for Huns in our state is not that area. That the area
Hmm.
where we see more of the Hungarian partridge is kind of, there's livestock area. And I got to say, some of those landowners that I've talked to and we've been out, especially the livestock guys, are, they're putting their fields into a three grass rotation to make sure that, and um, they're doing all sorts, different kinds of grazing, and making sure that they're keeping the land healthy. And I'm seeing that more and more, where,
Hmm.
they're increasing the, pretty much the carrying capacity of their land, just because of the way that they're farming it, where they're ranching it. There's a couple of people that you know are on some national boards out there who are showing, what improvements they've done to their land just by doing some smarter farming practices, and their cattle are healthier, their land is healthier. They're able to, it floods less in their area because their ground can actually hold more water than than a field that's tilled every other year, or is just grazed relentlessly and not in the way that some of the guys are doing it. So there's a right way to do it, and my hat's off to those guys that are out there doing those things, putting the tree rows in the right place, putting the their different types of grasses that they're putting in, and the different crops that they're planting, in the right rotation to kind of make the soil healthier and hold more water. And that is, to me, seems like one of those things where they're improving on habitat are these areas that I'm seeing these better populations, especially of Hungarian partridge and sharptail. Sharptail, I think that one, to me, the increases in that one are same deal. Their main range is an area that is unaffected by agriculture, and so in that area, it's those birds just kind of they've gone back and forth with kind of the weather trends that we've had have been more, whether there's a big blizzard that wipes them out, or some a good year where we have the right amount of moisture where we see population increase, and it's one of those things that they're up. Both are kind of hardier birds that can handle the drought. The people used to come to North Dakota to hunt sharptail only. That was kind of the years ago. I'm told by the old guys, I guess, that there was a time where no one came to North Dakota to pheasant hunt. They would come here and everybody be after sharptail, and that was the main game bird that we had in the state. And because it was, it's a native bird, and it's very well adapted to our climate. Where the pheasants, our first pheasant season was held in 1934, and and we've had the ups and downs with that, where where we've been learning about the population, and what certain programs did. They ended the soil bank program in the 1960s, and they had to close our season in 66 because there were no birds left after they cut off the soil bank program through the Department of Agriculture. And then so there's a lot of those things where we went. We had a 2 million bird harvest in 1945, and that dropped down to 45,000 pheasants in 1970. So just over a short period of time, you saw a real decline in the bird population. And then I feel like we've been building it back ever since then. We've been kind of getting those birds since the 1970s, 80s. Mm-hmm. And then I feel like we hit our stride early in the past decade. 2011, 2012 is where we saw our peak harvest.
What was that number?
But that number is it's about 700,000 birds in 2011.
Pheasants?
Pheasants. Yeah. Pheasants alone. Yeah. And that's
so 2 million was the peak, and then
2.45 million birds.
Wow.
In 1944. Yeah.
Wow, that is insane. Well, that just shows, how fast their populations can just explode.
Exactly. When they first introduced birds to the state, and we had our first season in 34. And then from there, 1934, they harvested 200,000 birds, and a decade later, they're harvesting 2.4 million birds. And it is that thing, how that population can build with, if they have the right habitat and and back then, I guess the pressure was low, other than the fact that the season was pretty unlimited. That 2.45 million was, the number of hunters was ridiculous. That got that number. So guys, I'm sure the limits on those birds are
that would be like you and I hauling a trailer behind us when we're walking in the field and just filling it.
Exactly.
I can't imagine there was more hunters then than we've had the last couple of years, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and looking at those numbers, it's interesting to see just how few hunters would have harvested that many birds back then, because it was there were less less hunters than we have now with that limit.
And what was the harvest last year? Do you have those numbers?
I do, yeah. 2020 harvest was about 330,000 birds.
Okay. How do you feel about that number based on, where do you want it to be? Like, where do you feel is an ideal number for your state?
Yeah, I feel like we're capable of 500,000. That's kind of my. I'm always thinking that that's where we should be, is about 500,000 birds. When we're lower than that, I feel like it's. We had a long talk in that 2019 season, and that was our low point. Was that we had about 250,000 birds harvested in 2019, and that had more to do with water and wetness. And so it's kind of weird. From 2019 to 2021, we have the opposite problem. We had too much water in 2019, so much water in the fall that year that we couldn't get tractors and combines into the fields because they were sinking down into the field. So that was the year we had those crops that stayed all year long. Like where I remember in March driving across the state and looking, and there's still standing corn in the fields in February and March, because no one was able to get out into the field to harvest those. And so just accessing those birds that year, because no crops were taken off. It was harder to get the birds. I feel like that led to the increase of last year, that 38% increase we saw last year. And then of course that was exciting. So it upped our number of hunters by 7,000 hunters, and they took more birds. And so we're seeing a little correction this year.
Got it. Well, I want to get into another very important topic with you, and that is the new digital trespass law that has gone into effect for this season. But first, I have a quick message from our sponsors. Besides a bird dog, a shotgun, and a good pair of boots, the Onix Hunt app is one of the most valuable hunting tools that I take into the field every single day. I've been talking about the Onix Hunt app since we started producing this podcast, and that's simply because I use it on every hunt. Their app tells me everything that I need to know about the lands that I want to hunt and the lands that we can all legally hunt together. If you've used it yourself, then you know that the Onix Hunt app shows your location on planet Earth and clearly lays out the land boundaries. It also tells you information about the type of property that you're on, like state land or the block management lands that we hunted last week in Montana. It's ideal for scouting before the hunt and during a hunt to help put together patterns. The app also has new features this year that show you the kind of crops that are in fields, which obviously is a big deal for us upland bird hunters. If you hunt grouse in the Northwoods, there's a timber cut layer to help you find ideal habitat. If you're planning to hunt North Dakota this year like me, then there's a very important layer that has just been added to the app. For the first time, landowners in North Dakota can post their property electronically. Onix has you covered to make sure you don't cross the line on property that has been posted electronically. Onix maps can be used in areas without cell coverage too. From the palm of your hand, Onix maps always help you to know where you stand. For generations, bird hunters have hit the fields carrying some form of a vest or game pouch on their backs. Sometimes the vests rip, tear, and fall apart. Other times they're downright uncomfortable. That's why Chief Upland designed a vest that's durable, comfortable, and fits your needs. Their new Upland vest is fully customizable to fit the size and shape of all hunters. Plus, you can decide where you want to attach your shell pouches and accessories. Birds can be front-loaded into the game pouch, and they fit nicely in the back without sagging. That's a big deal because the weight disbursement on your back and shoulders won't tire you out, even with a full pouch of birds. The vest itself is extremely lightweight, weighing only 2.56 pounds. The material is built out of Cordura fabric, which is the same waterproof fabric used in tactical military gear. You can confidently hunt with a Chief Upland vest in some of the world's toughest environments. Order your Chief Upland vest now to make sure that you're ready for opening day. Push further and hunt longer with the game-changing vest from Chief Upland, built for your pursuit.
Hey, upland hunters. If you're looking for a place to chase roosters this fall, you need to check out Huron, South Dakota. Here's why. The access to public hunting land is awesome. They have plenty of pet-friendly hotels for the hardest-working member of your hunting group. In addition, Huron is hosting a couple great events this hunting season, the first weekend of November. The Ringneck Festival, a 6-man competitive hunt which draws hunters from all over the country, and the Bird Dog Challenge. It's the opportunity you and your dog have been waiting for, complete with food, prizes, camaraderie, and so much more. The South Dakota pheasant season opens October 16th, so plan your hunting trip to Huron, South Dakota today. Check out the website and learn more at HuronSD.com.
Okay, Mike. So a big change on the landscape and a big, very important topic for us to cover for anybody that hunts in North Dakota. There's a new law in effect this year that involves the way that landowners can post their property, and we as hunters need to know all the information on it. So can you break it down for me, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So the big change this year, a question I'm always asked everywhere I go from hunters is it still the case where if it's not posted, it's open to walk-in hunting? Like and it's been that way for decades. Like our trespass law has been, yes, if there's no sign, it's open to public walk-in hunting. Well, for the past, and I think it's been at least 15 years or so, there's been a bill in the legislature every year to try and flip that, and try to make all land that's, no matter what, it's assumed posted. And for us, that's not really the North Dakota way. We've always had, if it's not posted, you're welcome to come and walk and hunt it. And for years that bill went down because of that, because there is a hunting culture here. There's people that love to get out and hunt all the time. So I know like but there was also these legitimate concerns from people who own land who just wanted to know who's out on their land, or, we're worried about, there were certain aspects of trespass that gave them concerns. And so this year's Senate Bill 2144 came out in the legislature, and this was kind of a compromise bill. This was, they met in the interim in between our legislative sessions, and they said, okay, we've been fighting about this for the last couple decades, and how do we get something fixed here? And so it was a compromise bill where they've been studying electronic posting for a while in the state, where we've had some study where we had 4 counties that were approved in the last legislature to do a study on, whether they can do an electronic posting system and how that works. Well, the data that came back from that study was fairly positive. They were able to, get that up and running, and so they went through, and 2144, that bill that came out, it did change our trespass law, and it didn't flip it to everything's closed. It's just that land can either be electronically posted, it can be posted by signs, the same old way that people have always done it, or any land that is fenced. So anything that can hold cattle, that was their definition of fenced. If it can hold cattle, it's fenced. So any fenced land is posted. Any land with signs, like the old signs with the name on it, is posted. And then there's electronic posting as well. The electronic posting is really the thing that we're trying to get people to understand, because that's a case where it's not like it used to be. If you don't see a sign, it doesn't necessarily, it still could be posted.
It might still be posted.
Yeah, it could be posted electronically. And we want people to know, to check on the plots guide is a good resource for that, because this year especially in the electronic version of the plots guide, you can see all of the posted lands. Electronic posted lands is in there, in addition to all of our wildlife management areas, plots, everything that's open to public hunting is in that book, as well as everything that's electronically posted. So that's been good. But I mean, I'm really trying to send people to, there's third-party apps like Onyx, who makes great hunting maps. That, I mean, they had those maps integrated into their system right away, like immediately, and all that electronic posting.
I'm so glad that worked out, because as soon as we were talking about this, I don't know, how long ago did we start talking about this, Mike? Maybe almost a year ago.
Well, it was after the legislature wrapped up, and we knew this was in the hopper, but I think we really got serious about it after this law was passed, probably back in March or so, where we knew we had to make people understand that, last thing I want is for somebody to come out here and get a misdemeanor trespass charge because they
Right.
didn't see a sign, and
Yeah.
so we want people to know, okay, here's the right way to do it. And, if I come out there and I just, I look on the, either on my Onyx map or on my, on the North Dakota GIS website, we have, geographic information website that has all those maps on it as well.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to the Game and Fish website, and they've actually put together some pretty good, question and answer type page. How do I, look for posted land, or, what are some resources that they have? So that, and that, I mean, it has, it's not posted if, and it, so they have some really good things on that website right now that will really, clarify what's posted, what's not posted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I just pulled up my Onyx app right now. I'm looking at it, and you have an option to turn on the layers in your
Mhm.
state. And there's 8 layers available in North Dakota. And the one you're looking for specifically says ND electronically posted land.
Yes.
And
Yep.
at first I thought, oh, I don't think many people are going to do it, will they? And then when we were driving through the state last week, I opened it up. I was like, I just want to see. I am amazed at how many of the properties are posted. Now,
Mhm.
it could be when you get there, they also have signs. So these might
Yeah.
have been properties that have been posted for years anyway. I don't know for sure, but it is extremely, extremely important to have this now
Mhm.
because of the amount of properties in the state that are posted electronically. There's a lot of red. There's a lot of red, and
There is.
I
Yeah.
still go
Yep.
back to as a bird hunter, and I still go back to that's normal for me everywhere else I
Mhm.
hunt around the country. So it's not like, oh, I'm done going to North Dakota. Everything is posted. That's not
Yeah.
necessarily the case. You might have a landowner that has 20,000 acres of land, and he just
Mhm.
doesn't have the ability to maintain those signs, keep up on them. They're busy. They've got a lot of other things, and they might also be the kind of person that goes out deer hunting with their family around Thanksgiving, but they don't bird hunt, or they may pheasant hunt once a year, but they don't duck hunt. And so this app basically gives you the information that you need to know to go up and knock on their door. And I don't know if it's 75% success rate, but it's close to that for people saying, you know what? Yeah, go ahead. And I can say, I can see on this map, this is where your land boundaries are. And I just want you to know that I won't go beyond that. Because in the past they would want to take me out for a drive and say like,
Mhm.
here's where my land ends. And now
Right.
I have all
Right.
that information right there too. So I just think that it's important to know, as always, wherever we're hunting, to respect people's property. This gives us information right at our fingertips right there. I'm extremely happy that you guys were able to work with Onyx on that to get the land onto that app too, because it just makes it so convenient to have that information. But again, where did you say was the other place that people can go?
Well, they can. I'd say go to gf.nd.gov.
Okay.
That's our Game and Fish's website, and there's a page on there called Where to Hunt. And if you go on that, they have a land access basics is what it's called, and it's pretty easy.
Is it
It has a thing that says can hunt without permission, and land that's not physically or electronically posted, private lands open to sportsmen, or to recover game without a firearm. Like you can go on to posted land to recover game without a firearm. So that makes it really clear. Okay, here are the 3 instances where I can hunt without permission, and then there are places you can only hunt with permission within 440 yards of an occupied dwelling, land that's posted physically or electronically, rights of way and section lines, and then unharvested crops. Those are kind of the land trespass basics in the state where
yeah.
where they always, even if land is not posted, that's always been in the past when we would tell, oh, everything that's not posted is open, and there was always, there even then there were some stipulations, unless if there's unharvested crops, then, like we
You can't go in
would
that
have
field.
to, there was always that stipulation. But I do think that, looking through that list, I looked at that map and I saw a lot of red myself. But when I went out, it's a lot of the areas where I would see signs before. And I feel
Okay.
like there's a lot of people that this was just an easier route. And that was kind of the landowner's argument against, this takes so much time, especially those people with a lot of acreage. It took a lot of time for them to go out and post those lands, and they, it was difficult maintaining. It was a large expense. So now if they can do it electronically, a lot are doing it that way. I still, there's still people there's still signs out there that, a lot of people are even planning on posting signs anyway this year. But I do feel like it's just important that people know that, they, even if there's not a sign, it might be posted. And that's been the word I'm trying to get out there. If there's not a sign, it might be posted.
We've talked about it for the last couple of weeks. We've also mentioned that if it's not posted at this point of time, it will not be posted electronically for the rest of the season because they've missed the window to post it electronically. So you don't have to worry about showing up at a place that you found birds out in a field on a Tuesday night and you intend to hunt there again on Wednesday. There could be a physical sign in the ground that says no hunting, but they cannot post it electronically at this time if it's not already posted. Correct?
No, there's a sign up period that has a deadline, and each year it'll be there will be that, there's a deadline in July for them to sign up to electronically post their land. And so each year when they go to post, game officials was all over the place this year. Make sure you get out and post. And there were a couple people that were kind of late to that party who will be out putting up signs because they didn't know that they had to have that in, that they couldn't post at any time. Where if you post with a physical sign, you can post at any time. If you're posting electronically, you got to make that deadline. And so you're not going to be surprised by a out of nowhere posting.
Got it. One of my favorite conversations I get to have every year with people is the one that I get to have with you is, where should I hunt this year, Mike? What are some of your cool hunting opportunities that people don't know about? One of them that I still haven't done is your rough grouse.
Yes. Yep.
This is kind of an underutilized, would you say, or people don't even know it exists, but rough grouse hunting in North Dakota?
Mm-hmm. I would say underutilized for sure. And, that area where we're, where we see most of the grouse hunting is kind of the most picturesque part of the state too, where we see a lot of rough grouse. And so that the North Dakota Badlands is really good, has always been really good grouse hunting. And we're seeing,
Sharptails though, right?
Yeah. Sharptails, very, good sharptail out there. And then, where we're seeing, the southern part of that area, the southern Badlands is really where we see more of that rough grouse.
Really? Do anybody hunt for them out there?
Not a lot. No, not. I mean, that area is kind of, it's close to our primary pheasant range, I guess. And so most people in that area are hunting pheasant down in that area.
Do you have any reports about your rough grouse numbers there this year? Are they? I assume have the cycle.
That's not part of the regular roadside survey. That and so we're seeing, we don't get a lot of data on those.
Would you do me a favor and drive down there and take a walk? Tell me how many rough grouse. Oh, what about the Turtle Mountain area? Because there's rough grouse there too, right?
There is, yeah, absolutely, yep. And that's, that range. I mean, exactly. I like that area more, and it's kind of funny because there's some terrain that's up in the Turtle Mountains, especially on the edges of the Turtle Mountains, but that you see that similar to some of those butte areas of the far southwest North Dakota that I'm talking about. But yeah, there are up in that area, but there are areas that are open that you have to to look into. But Bottineau County, Rowlett County, some of those areas, Cavalier, Pembina, those are the areas that where where we see the most rough grouse hunting, and that are open to that. And the Pembina County area, like one of my favorite areas up there is the Pembina Gorge. And that's another one of these, like when I said the most scenic parts of the state, I'm really talking about the Pembina Gorge and the Turtle Mountains. And those two areas, the gorge and the mountains, that's kind of a sneaky rough grouse territory, and where you end up seeing a lot in those two areas, and especially Cavalier, Pembina County. That I know there's a lot up in that area. I've talked to a lot of people that hunt up in that area, so it's a nice area for that.
What about we kind of gave up a little bit of that Devil's Lake pheasant numbers on the rise. What other parts of your state do you feel like people don't know about that they might want to look into?
Well, the one, and I feel like this is, I mean, I'm kind of a broken record about it, but the Crosby area in Divide County, that one is an area that when I talk to your average Minnesota or Wisconsin pheasant hunter, it's just a little too far. And I said, like, that's kind of funny to me that that I'm like, there's really good birds up there. Is there anything a little bit closer? Because that's the other corner of the state, and I feel like that hesitancy has led to some low pressure in that area, and
Agreed.
that we end up seeing a lot of birds up in there, and that population has just been growing each year, and so that area to me is kind of one of those sneaky good, but it's a drive. It's a haul for anybody from Minnesota, Wisconsin, who those are our two, number one and number two pheasant markets for non-residents as Minnesota and Wisconsin, and for those hunters to go all the way. Once they get to the state, you're talking another, it's a ways
It's a haul
to get across. It's good. It's a good 6.5, 7 hours to get from Fargo up to there.
My pup, if you've heard this noise of what sounds like a dog chewing on a bone this whole episode, that's because that's my dog literally chewing on a bone sitting next to me. And she is from the northwest corner of the state. So for me to get up there where my buddy lives, it's about a 9.5 hour drive.
Right.
And it's a commitment. If you're going to go both ends, it's a long drive. But what I tell people about, making that drive to that region, that western part of the state, is that, if you go hunting, a lot of people go into western Minnesota or, eastern North Dakota, South Dakota, those areas, and you love pheasant hunting, you get that in the western part of the state. But then when a dog goes on point, you also have the ability or the opportunity to watch a covey of Huns explode or a covey of sharptailed grouse explode. So that extra few hours of drive is so worth it. So worth it. Daisy's over there agreeing with me. Yeah.
She totally agrees. Yep.
She totally agrees. And after camping out in the Badlands last year, I just don't understand why that isn't on everybody's list at least one time to do it, because it is some of the most beautiful bird country in North America. It's just spectacular. And we didn't see another hunter out there. And I just don't understand it. I don't get it. It was incredible. And they're there. The birds are there. The wildlife, the views. It's stunning. Stunning place to hunt. And you just got done telling us that those numbers are strong again this year. So if I'm on the fence about an area that maybe doesn't have the highest counts that I'm getting from any state in the Midwest, consider that an opportunity for you to take a hunt out in the Badlands or in the western part of the state or any of the areas that you just told us about, Mike.
Right. And especially, I'll send people northwest just because I really think like they're sitting on better numbers than than I would say 6 of the past 10. Maybe there were 3 years that had better numbers than this year. up in that part of the state. And so when you compare like the last decade, their numbers are strong, and they've been on an upward trajectory for a while. And those other areas of the state, the Southeast, I really liked sending people southeast for a long time, because that is an easier hunt for people coming from the east, and southeast has been good. I've seen, there's always the anecdotal part of it too, where, I talk to landowners and I talk to people in different areas, and there's some areas of the state where they say bird numbers are down, but I've got farmers in that area that are saying, not on my ranch, not on my farm,
right,
and so, some of those areas are seeing really good numbers. Like I said, the Southeast saw, almost held even. I think it's maybe a 1% increase in that area. So they almost added nothing on, but the point there is they didn't lose any. And so it's going to be similar hunting to what it has been. If anybody hunts down in the Southeast, you're going to see similar birds to what you've seen in the last couple of years. And then there's that weird Northeast phenomenon where I've been seeing that population increase. Right now we're talking in the, like I said, it's all relative from 4 birds up to, but it's hundreds of % increase that we've seen in the last decade up in that area. And that's good for that area. And I think, just that we have pheasants statewide. I do say that to everyone. I'd say, we have pheasants statewide. There's some areas that there are pockets of birds that are better in here. I'll point out on a map a bunch of different places that people could go and check out. And, sometimes the other things are what dictate what they want to do. If they're looking for Hungarian partridge, or they're looking for sharptail, the question, it narrows that a little bit. And I do think that's been the fun thing about sending more people up north, along that north border, is that they get into some of the other upland species, and seeing, those guys, some people coming back, and I saw more Hungarian partridge than I've ever seen anywhere. Like I've never seen that many Hungarian partridge, and especially north of Minot, there's a couple of areas where people just don't think of pheasant hunting, and those are some areas that are holding some really good birds right now.
Well, you've done a good job of explaining. Hopefully it's helped a lot of people. If there are still more questions that somebody listening right now has, and they want to look at a map specifically to see that information, where can you send them?
So I will send them to ndtourism.com. Like that's our, that would be the website and if you go to that, I guess, like, one of the things that I usually do is I'll just type in pheasant hunting North Dakota, and if you type that into Google or whatever, into a search engine, our pheasant hunting page will be one of the top 4 or so. So you can look for North Dakota tourism pheasant hunting. You get onto our pheasant hunting landing page, is what we call it, and that's where all of the different, we have our pheasant hunting hotspots. So it's the best places that shows the 5 best places to hunt pheasants in the state. You can look at, we have all the different lodges are listed there, the plots guides on there, the bag limits, just kind of regulation highlights. If you want more specific information on the do's and don'ts of pheasant hunting, that Game and Fish website's the best place to go for that, because they're they kind of have all the rules, and they establish all that. But ours is, if you go to the tourism website, you're going to find more of the here's where here's the best places to hunt. Here's, where you can stay, where you can eat, where you can, those type of things. And we have those on our tourism website.
Perfect. Mike, appreciate you taking the time. I'm looking forward to getting back out to North Dakota. I'm excited every time I hear another sleeper spot from you. It gives me something to chew on, to think, oh man, I really do need to get up into those Turtle Mountains like you've been telling me for the last couple of years. So who knows, maybe we'll see that on a TV show next season. And speaking of that, you can watch our shows airing right now on the Outdoor Channel from now through the end of December. We'll be back next week with another forecast breaking down bird numbers that are coming in all over the country. I hope you'll join us then. Thank you for joining us. Today, I'm Travis Frank, reminding you to take the time to introduce someone new to the field.